Welcome to UI Scalebox Buttons and Mouse, where we'll be covering those three things. By the end of the video, you will have a much improved menu system where we have a mouse for a start, which you may notice we didn't have before. We'll be able to scale the window with our title text and our buttons sticking appropriately, and the background image scaling nicely. And that's it, really. For now, the mouse will have a default hover over effect, but it won't do anything yet. So let's go and make that happen. So the first thing you may notice is I've slightly changed my Windows screen scaling so that when I hit the play button here inside the main menu blueprint, I actually get a preview window that doesn't overspill my screen. So everything will be a little bit smaller for you for the next few videos. Right, another thing is that once we have actually brought up this preview menu, screen, by the way, it's previewing a empty scene at the moment. So if you want it to preview the actual menu, you need to go to the main menu level or scene, and then back in the blueprint when you click play, you'll find it previews your actual menu. Now, there's no mouse, so one of the first things we need to sort out is how do you show the mouse when the UI is displaying? Well, let's take a look at that now. Back in the level blueprint for the main menu, we have currently just created the menu widget instance from the menu blueprint class and added it to the viewport. What we need to do now is to show the player's mouse. So we start by finding the player. So if you do a search, you can look for get player controller. That is me. That's the human player controlling this instance of the game. So there's get player controller. There you go. Now from the return value, so that we use the context sensitivity, we can then look for mouse. And then one of the options towards the bottom will be set show mouse cursor. So we get a reference to the player controller. We tick set show mouse cursor, and then bring that into the execution flow so that once we have added the widget to the viewport, we then show the mouse cursor. Let's try it. Either play from the main menu, and you can see there is a mouse there, or you can go to the main menu blueprint there, and then you could use the play button, and you'll see that we now have a mouse. And that has a couple of benefits. Firstly, we're going to be able to click the button when it comes up, but secondly, I can go to the bottom right of the window and I can resize it, and that will show us how this image responds to changes in screen size. Now, I don't like that at the moment. Firstly, it's not filling the background, and secondly, I don't like the way that it's cropping and leaving black areas with different screen sizes. So let's sort that out. I'm going to rename background image to just main BG just to make it shorter, but that's just really me being tidy. It's not super important. It isn't actually variable. It's not going to have an interactable element in it, so you can untick is variable if you wish, and that will also, the main BG will no longer be bold in the hierarchy. Now, what we need is, under panels, you'll see there is a scale box. Now, if you hover over that and read it for yourself, that's, by the way, window, palette, if you haven't got it, panel, section, and then scale box. If you read the stuff that comes up, it'll tell you that it's ideal for background images. So let's use one of them. We pop it straight onto the canvas panel, which is our main panel for our entire user interface. And instead of the background image being straight on the panel, we put it on the scale box. Now let's see the effect that has. Firstly, we want this scale box anchors to be this selection at the bottom right, so that it covers the entire background. And then we want no offsets either. So let's remove those offsets, and that sets it to cover most of the screen like that. But most of the screen's not good enough. We want all of the screen. So select 0, 0, so that all of the offsets are 0, 0, 0. That way, the scale box is covering the entire UI canvas, and that is going to be what we're looking for. So let's see how this behaves now. So far, similarly, and that's because the scaling type isn't what we're after. So if you click on Scale Box and you look under the stretching settings, under Details, and then there is Scale to Fit, but also Scale to Fill. I took a while finding this recently because they look almost identical. It's only a couple of letters different, right? So try Scale to Fill. Let's have a look at that now as a preview. Ah, that's nice. So look, as we go up, it takes a bit of the top and bottom of the image off, and left and right, that works as well. Now, for a small array of different screen shapes like I'm going through now, this is working fine. And this also is important when you choose your image, that you have some what a designer would call quiet zones around the left, right, top and bottom of the image. Bits of the image that it doesn't matter too much if you lose. The screen can come in a little bit like that, it can go out, and the image still looks okay. Cool. So now that we've got our scaling set up properly, let's go ahead and show you how to add text and buttons. I'm not actually going to add them yet. I'm going to challenge you to do that. But the things that you're looking for to finish this initial version of the UI off is number one, text. You can drag the text into or straight onto the canvas panel. It is not inside the scale box into this. The scale box is purely for the background image. We could call it BG scale, for instance. And then you could even collapse that down. So we have this background scale box there, and then now we have a text block. So this could be the title, you could rename that, but the point with text boxes is you can move them around, and under appearance, under font, you can change the size of the text. Now, talking about font, please take a little bit of time to customize the font. This default font's really boring and stinks of somebody who's not bothered to customize it. So somewhere like DaFont is a good idea. Have a look through here. I'm going to use Ink Tank, so by just searching for tank, you'll find Ink Tank here, but there's plenty of others. You could use Boom Tank, you could use whatever. Now, you want to have a look at the license. It's up top at the top here. Ink Tank is 100% free, but Boom Tank, for example, is free for personal use. If you're going to be using this in an actual game, then you need to be thinking a little bit about what your license is, and you need to be very careful that you either contact the author if you're not sure, or that you adhere to the license terms. And certainly if you're going to be selling your game, you need to be buying the font. But I'm going to use Ink Tank, which is free. Now let's get the font imported, then I'll show you how to make a button, then I'll leave you to lay out your UI. So I'm going to download the zip file. In there I've got a TTF, which is a true type font. And the way you get that into Unreal is like the same way as you get any other asset in. You go to your content browser. I'm going to go to my UI folder. I'm going to import an asset. It's going to be Ink Tank. And it's come in automatically as a font, which is cool. So back over here, now in my list of fonts, I will simply be able to find Ink Tank. And there you go. So that's how you'd put a text block in. The other thing I'm going to show you is how you'd put a button in. You drop a button, not into the screen, it won't work, but onto the canvas panel. And then again with the button you can resize it. Think about the anchor. One of the first things you want to do with any UI element is think about where do you want your button to be on the screen and where do you want it to stick to. Do you want it to stick to the bottom right, the top right, whatever. And then also you can drag text onto the button to label it. All right. Now I want you to have a play with that and remember to customize your font. So I'm going to delete that button for now and put you into your challenge, which is to lay out your main menu. Choose a font for your title text, consider adding a subtitle, add and style a start button, and check that the scaling works well and that the button is visible at a variety of different screen shapes. So go ahead, pause the video and set up your UI now. Okay, welcome back. So I'm going to start by just putting some text in as I did before. I'm going to call it Battle Tank. Now hopefully you found the property where you set the text. It's here. Let's go ahead and scale that up. Choose a font. Now this text I want anchored to the bottom left of the screen, which means I want it to be a fixed offset from the bottom left of the screen. I'm going to justify it to the left, I think, as I'm anchoring to the left. It makes sense to justify to the left so that we have, as I said, the word starts in a fixed position compared to the bottom left. Remember to go ahead and preview these things nice and lean, i.e. nice and instantaneously after you've put them down. As soon as you've got your font how you want it, have a preview. And just make sure that for a reasonable range of screen shapes, that the text doesn't interfere with the background and is legible. Great, that's looking okay to me. Fine, now let's put in another button. But 1 second first, I'm going to give this a name. Let's just call it title text. Fine. Now let's pop a button in. Onto the canvas panel. So we have the background scale box. By the way, that background scale box ought to have a Z order, which is the Z depth. It says higher numbers appear on top. So let's give it a value of -99, just to indicate this is going to be way in the background. Anything less than 0 is fine. I'm just going to use -99. We just want to make sure that we explicitly tell the system that that background renders behind this text, which has a Z order of 0. All right. Otherwise, there's a chance that it won't render in the right place and the text will be obscured. Same with the button. I'm going to leave the button as 0. The reason I'm choosing 99 for the background image is because then anything else you put in comes with a default Z order of 0, and then we don't need to worry about it. It's something we don't need to change every time. So let's have a button down the bottom left here. Now, immediately that you put an UI element in, think about where its anchors should be. The buttons are going to be anchored to the bottom right. There's that. Okay, now it's going to be called Start Button. Just call it Start Button. It is variable. This variable button, if you untick that, you won't get any events and we won't be able to deal with on-click. So leave that variable, and it's bold in the hierarchy. It just means it's an interactable element. Now let's add on text and drop it on the Start button. Just going to call it Start Text. And let's change the text to the word Start. in capitals, I think is nice and easy to read. Let's zoom in so we can see it. Rescale a little bit. Start. Just change the font to be consistent. There you go. That's fine. Now, if you're finding that you don't like the alignment of this thing, it is possible to play around with the padding. For instance, I could probably do with some more top padding here. Go to 4 or 5 pixels of top padding, or 6 even. Might just bring the word start down a little bit, make it look a little bit more sensible. Something like that. And there you go. We now have a start button. Let's check the scaling, and then we are done for this video. So that's good. The start button is anchoring to the bottom right, battle tank to the bottom left. Unless we have a ridiculously narrow screen, even at like 4:3, we're just about going to be feasible. And on a wider screen, people have these wide monitors now, then it's all looking like it's going to work, which is great. Awesome. So I'm going to now commit my work. Remember to be using source control yourself. I suggest every single video, but you just want to get in the habit of committing your changes. Before you commit anything, make sure you click Save All, of course, in Unreal, so that all of your changes are saved to disk. There are no asterisks up the top here. And I will see you in the next video.